There we go. I
Oh,
think I
you're
got this.
looking nice and bright.
Yeah,
Good.
what's wrong with you? You don't look so bright.
Uh,
That was, it's all good.
Put my hood up and
Yeah. You're supposed to look more menacing. I'm supposed to look nice and bright, and you're supposed to look like brooding. It's the way. There you go. Nailed it. Yeah, right up there.
just the whole time, just be really obnoxiously right in front of the camera.
I figure we got to give reason for people to actually watch the YouTube feed, because each way that this podcast works, it gives you a different experience. Speaking of this podcast, welcome to Growing Up Punk, the podcast about punk rock and all of its friends. My name is David. This is my friend. His name is Aaron. Hello, Aaron.
My name is Aaron. Hey, what's up? Nice to be back again.
Yeah, we took a week off or so because you have so many interviews that are just like already done that we have to work through them.
I did 26 interviews last week.
How many did you actually do?
One of them was real.
One of them was real.
The rest were just inner dialogues that I recorded.
That's
just
fair.
In case we need material.
You know what? It's fine. It's fine. We sometimes you never know when we'll need those inner dialogues that you've been working on for who knows how long. Anyways, as I was saying beforehand, you can listen to the podcast on all your favorite podcast apps, and you get the bonus of, having the music and stuff and the songs that we're talking about. But if you listen/watch it on YouTube, you get the bonus of being able to see us do ridiculous things like what we're doing right now.
I'm gonna raise the roof the whole episode.
You know what you also I
might take my shirt off too.
Speaking of shirts, check it out.
Ooh,
I got my own shirt. So, and by my own shirt, I mean a shirt that I designed. So yeah, so there's that, and then on the back it's
beautiful.
Yeah, I didn't want to show too much of my ass crack there because I'm not wearing any pants.
Hey, that's part of the bonus. That's why we call it that.
Well, that's something entirely different. But yeah, that's you can get this shirt and others. See, these are all just segues on our website, growingpunkpod.com. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at growingpunkpod. You'll find our personal Instagrams and Twitters there as well. And as I mentioned, at growingpunkpod.com, we've got, there's, some album reviews. There's just different blog posts that go up. You can also find our Patreon there for $5 a month. You get bonus content that we were just teasing a little bit there. And you can also grab one of these shirts or one of the other shirts. One of the shirts has our own faces on it, drawn by your wife of us riding a horse together. It is what it is. And I've actually started to get pictures. Yeah, it's majestic. I've actually started to get pictures from people who ordered those shirts showing up, and it's pretty great. I was actually hanging out with a friend last week, and he's like, he just nonchalantly gets up. He's like, "Oh, I'm just gonna run and grab something, but it's getting a little warm in here." And he takes his hoodie off, and lo and behold, he's wearing one of our shirts with you and I riding
awesome.
A horse on the back. And I was like,
"Oh, keeping him warm all winter."
Yeah, I've now seen this in person. It gets even better. So go follow us on all of our places, growingpunkpod.com. Make it like when you open up Google Chrome or Firefox or Opera or whatever. If you happen to use Microsoft Edge for some unknown reason, you can make it like your homepage. So every time
Yahoo Mail.
Well, that's not a web browser.
Well, it is for me.
It is for you. If you're still on like what were some of the other ones? Safari,
MSNBC.
Again, not a web browser.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know internet.
There's one that I'm thinking of that's straight up 90s, and like the icon for it was like a compass.
Microsoft Paint. I don't know what that one was. Safari.
Well,
no, did you say that?
I did say Safari. But there's one I'm thinking that starts with an N. I think Safari might have been encompassed. Anyways, whatever. This doesn't matter. I feel like the amount of time we spend talking about 90s punk and stuff like that, we should be a little more familiar with just like 90s stuff in general. So like 90s web browsers. We need to brush up.
I didn't have web browsers in the 90s though.
That's not true at all. When did you get the internet?
We kind of had like sketchy dial-up maybe in like, I don't know, grade 10 or 11 maybe.
Okay. So you would have been, so that's early 2000s for you.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have had internet in the 90s.
I think we officially moved from sketchy dial-up to like broadband or whatever it was called in the early 2000s. But we did have internet in the 90s. It was dial up, and you couldn't be on it at the same time as someone was trying to make a phone call. It's
Yeah.
good times. It really didn't serve much purpose. I don't know. I don't even know. Those were the days of like going on the chat rooms and talking to people. Anyway, whatever.
Well, I
We'll move
remember
on.
the cord, the plug-in cord was super long. It went kind of all the way through our basement rec room into the laundry room. And so it was like my mom would come down to do laundry and like trip over the cord and yank it out of the computer and all that. Because someone like close the door on it and it would pull it out. And it
Amazing.
was just a mess.
So what you weren't downloading and burning your favorite punk rock albums at that time?
No, I was still hiring a friend that I worked
Yeah,
with at McDonald's to do
that's
that
fair.
for $5 or $10 a CD. But then I had another friend who got it, and then I got my own computer and internet the year I
Yeah.
graduated. So
Nice. Yeah, I feel like even when I had, because I think I had like quote unquote high speed internet before I had a CD burner. So I think I still had people downloading and burning for me, even though like I can remember going to like mp3.com and downloading songs and whatever, but I didn't have a CD burner for a while. So that was kind of, now it's funny because you get computers now and they typically don't have CD burners anymore either, because most of the time you buy a laptop, it doesn't come with a CD player or like a CD-ROM or DVD player or anything. So even we've like gone back in time in
it's
that
true. You
sense.
got to buy an external one, and
You do. It's funny because this new computer that I got, when I bought it, one of the things my wife said is she's like, "Oh, I wanted to have a DVD player because she's homeschooling one of our kids, and part of the curriculum is on DVD." And I was like, "All right, well, I'll go look and see what I can find." I found one laptop with a DVD player in it, and it was insane how heavy it was compared to like,
it's
well,
crazy.
the laptop that I got or any other ones. And I was like, no, we'll just spend the $50 on an external DVD player. And then,
Yeah, it's
you
cheap
know,
enough.
yeah. Anyway, let's get into before we actually wrap up our MXPX series. This is what we're doing today. We're wrapping it all up. Let's talk about some new music. You got a song you want to share?
Well, I'm only allowed to share one, I
Yeah, you
guess.
told me you had four, and I said you get one, one
Well, there was
song. We're not here all night.
lots of good music came out last week. However, you did mention at least one of them on the last What a Week wrap up. So if you want to see what that is, you can go check that out there. The album I'm going to go with is the newest from Everything in Slow Motion. The album's called Influence. This is kind of a weird pick for me because I don't listen to a lot of kind of moody,
Mhm.
dynamic, post-hardcore, whatever you kind of want to call it. Kind of similar to some of the later Thrice, well, I guess post Artist in the Ambulance Thrice. So it still, has heaviness to it, but a lot more kind of ups and downs. And anyways, it's a really cool album. I'm a little bit partial to it because the main creator kind of guy who does that band, Shane, is an old friend who was in another band years ago that we toured with, and so it's cool to see him still making music. And I think he recorded it in like this like massive hall of some kind. I saw some pictures of it, and I think he might have even recorded all of it himself or has in the past. So, anyways, it's a really cool album. There's lots to take away from it, and I'm still kind of getting into it. But yeah, a really really cool album overall.
Was it on Face Down?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So why don't you show? Come on, man. Show us the shirt
Yeah.
you're wearing. I was like, I could just see like the top of it. I'm like, come on,
Yes, I just realized
Face
that.
Down hoodie. Let's show that off. You could do that because we, as we mentioned earlier, we got to give some things to the people who watch it on YouTube.
Well, if I take it off, I've also got a face down tattoo. Just kidding.
Oh, fancy.
Not yet.
Nipple. It's right above your right nipple.
That would be awesome. Just a super small little text just around the nipple. Face
Or
down
it says
because-
face down on your chest, but the O is actually your nipple.
Oh, hey,
Oh.
now we're talking.
Now we're talking. Yeah, and you mentioned the What a Week. If you go to growingpunkpod.com, every week we share stuff we're listening to. And I also have a friend of mine, he shares what you should be watching. So 5 things you should be watching. And the thing is, they're not all new. It can be, like old movies or new TV shows, new movies, whatever. Same with music, old and new. We kind of try to mix it up a little bit. So you can check that out at growingpunkpod.com. Sign up for our email list while you're there as well. I should say that. That way you get up to date on everything every week when I remember to send it out. The song that I wanted to mention, I'm trying to remember where this one popped up for me because it's just a single and I don't have anything else by this band in my collection, or in my Apple Music library. I was just kind of scrolling through going, oh, what do I want to talk about? What's something new I could mention? Because I'm like everything in slow motion. A lot of people talking about it. Seaway, obviously they released their new record,
Yeah.
Big Vibe. A lot of people talking about that. I'm assuming that's what you were referencing when
Yeah.
you said, Seaway mentioned in What a Week. But this band is called Cardboard Box Colony. And
Oh yeah, nice. I checked that out too.
yeah, the single's called Bedtime Stories. And I don't know, I think they must have, maybe my guess is they followed us on Instagram. And
Yeah.
a lot of times when bands follow us, I'll check them out and I'll be like, oh, sweet. And
Yeah,
it's a
me
great
too.
way. Yeah, great way to discover new music. Anyways, I'd kind of describe at least this single as, you know, kind of like poppy, skate punk sort of thing. Like it's pretty fast. But it's also obviously quite, you know, straight up poppy. It reminds me of classic early 2000s kind of vocal delivery. The singer sounds equally influenced by, say, like Jordan Pundik from Newfound Glory and like Tom DeLonge sort of thing. That's kind of what I was picking up from it. It was, but also like it doesn't just sound like a early 2000s knockoff pop punk band. If that, like, it sounds modern. It's pretty great. So yeah, the song again is called Bedtime Stories. Check it out if you haven't yet. Let's get into wrapping up. This episode's a little different. I said that for the last one too. So because the last one, of course, we did the 2 live records, but
oh yeah, yep.
This episode, we're going to talk about 4 albums technically, 3 EPs, and then 1 full length. So this series that we've been doing on MXPX is, the idea is that it's everything that came after the ever passing moment. So technically we've broken that rule once and we're breaking it again on this episode because one of the EPs came before the ever passing moment.
Yeah.
But we thought, you know, we could talk all day about those early to mid library MXPX records because we grew up with them and we loved them, right? And you know, it's kind of after the ever passing moment that, you know, it's kind of like, okay, well, what's here for us? So today we're going to talk about 3 of their EPs and then their self-titled record. So let's jump into them. We're going to talk about them in order of release. So let's start with the Broken Bones EP. And this is one that you were super excited to talk about. So why don't you take the lead?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to just give a kind of a little intro, I guess, to the EPs. MXPX has a lot of really solid EPs, which I think is really cool for a band that's, you know, probably more known for their full lengths, which I guess maybe lots of bands are that have been around this long. And I always loved how they used EPs to, you know, break up the regular kind of release cycle or maybe experiment with sound or a record label, do some new things, you know, but ultimately just to keep the fans engaged. And I remember that with EPs, you know, back when things would just kind of get announced, you know, when they were coming out, you know, not now how there's, you know, singles and all this leading up. It was kind of just the album's coming out whenever. It was just always really kind of a cool way to anticipate it because you didn't really know much about it. You know, you hadn't heard that they were recording it, or, you know, just the promotion was a bit different. And I just always liked that about the way they did EPs. So for the Broken Bones one, I remember when this was released and I was really excited for it. I think some of the songs were on that came from Bremerton VHS. I specifically remember Make Up Your Mind, I believe, is in the background on that one.
Yeah.
I can't remember exactly kind of why they released this or why there was this one versus a full length or whatever, but this is probably my favorite EP of theirs. The production is awesome on this one. You know, some of those some of those older EPs, you know, that we'll talk about, they don't have the same kind of production quality, but this one sounds really good. The songs are awesome. It's diverse enough with only being 4 songs. To me, this is kind of the MXPX that I miss. You know, these were songs that got me really excited and kept me in love with the band. Like I said, there was only 4 songs on it, but it was diverse enough. Each song kind of stood out on its own. I ordered it on vinyl back when, just because it was something different for me to collect. and I don't even know if I even listened to it because I never had a record player, and then I ended up giving it away. So, yeah, I don't think. Yeah, I know. I don't even think they released it on CD. So
Yeah.
I'll never guess I'll never have
Uh,
it again. Did
I,
they?
I'm not sure, like, cause
Or was it just a
I'm
vinyl
wondering
release?
what's that?
I thought it was just a vinyl release. I don't remember
It's
seeing it
it's
on CD, but
possible. I just like look at the art, like the only artwork I could find online for it included like this sticker on the front that said, the ever passing moment is coming sort of thing. So I'm not a yeah, I'm
oh,
not I
could have been.
that was well, but I mean that could have still been on the vinyl as well. Like that's one of the things for me that I was never sure of because I never owned this I never owned this, and I always wanted it. Like I was always aware of it. I'm just looking up to see. Yeah, it does say it's a 7-inch red vinyl. I'm just trying to see if there was a CD release of it.
I've never seen a CD of it or anybody that has it. So
Yeah, well, and so like that's the thing. I remember hearing about this. So when I was talking about going on to like mp3.com and downloading music and what have you, I was I was thinking about, I can buy it off Discogs right now for 19.99.
oh, that's not
No,
bad
it was
actually.
on CD. There was the Broken Bones
Oh,
CD EP promo released by A&M. I wonder if that's anyway.
is that on
So
Discogs too?
it's on Discogs. I'm just wondering if, like, when you look at it, if it had an actual, no, it just says radio station promo. So I don't think it actually physically sold
Okay, yeah.
as a CD. So yeah, there's just the one listing on here, the 7-inch. And but yeah, so getting distracted. I can remember downloading the song Broken Bones Broken Bones off of, I think it was mp3.com or whatever. And that was the only thing I knew off of this for a little bit. Obviously, eventually when I bought It Came from Bremerton and watched it, some of those songs I'd be like, oh, that's what that is, sort of deal, right? But I don't think I actually listened to this EP. I'm sure I did, but when I listened to it this time around, I was like, I don't know if I recognize this song. And then there'd be like one part where I'd be like, oh no, maybe I do. Like out of the all 4 songs, there were kind of different
Yeah.
parts where I was like, no, I think I do know this song. So it's definitely something that was kind of a little foreign to me, something I hadn't really ever listened to. But I think when you say, it being like the MXPX that kind of like you love most or whatever, I think this is a good transition piece between Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo and The Ever Passing Moment. I think,
Yeah.
it kind of bridges those two records a little bit. Not that they were hugely different, but there was definitely a noticeable, kind of shift between those two records. So this kind of plays a nice little spot in there. And I always loved and wanted it because of the fact that, and I'm assuming, that it's like Mike in the Ever Passing Moment booklet wearing the Broken Bones
Yeah, yeah.
shirt. And I was like, I always thought that was so weird because it's like not like this really big release. And it's not like in the t-shirt it says MXPX Broken Bones. It just says Broken Bones, and I'm pretty sure it's the same, like the skull logo, right?
Yeah, so I think with the story with that is the Broken Bones was like their like BMX gang or something. So I think it
Right.
was kind of they just got some shirts made like for their friends and they'd ride around or whatever. I remember seeing that on
Yeah.
I don't know some old poster or something back then.
Yeah. And so like I'm on some random website. There is like a t-shirt of it. I don't think that's the one he was wearing though, because this says MXPX on the skull. I was just trying to find a shot of like from the Ever Passing Moment because I don't have it on me, but
Yeah, I was just looking at that CD insert last week.
yeah. I it's funny because in preparation for our bonus episode that we're going to do, I was listening to the Ever Passing Moment for the first time in a while. It's one of the few like CDs original copies that I still have that like
Oh, nice.
I bought back in the day, but maybe it was the same because I'm seeing these other Broken Bones t-shirts. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. We're going down a rabbit hole that doesn't need to be gone down. But that's kind of cool. But yeah, no, this EP it is really refreshing to listen to. Especially because for me it is, it's a collection of songs that I'm semi familiar with but never had the opportunity to get overly familiar with because it's not on any streaming services, right? And even I don't even
Right.
think it's on YouTube in its entirety. to like listen to it that way. You had to send it to me for me to be able to listen to it.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool. My favorite song on the record, I think, is probably Time and Season, because it's fast, it's fun, and I also want to live in this alternate universe where the end of that song is actually the beginning of At the Show, because they end Time and Season
Oh
with just
yeah.
like hitting that
There's that
open,
open
all the
chord.
open
Yeah.
strings, and I'm like, oh, it's the exact same. It's like I just want that to be the end. And it's just like I should try and sync it up and see if I can run one into the other and be like, oh, look at
Oh,
that.
never thought about that before.
It flows nicely. But yeah, no, that's definitely the standout track for me. I think but you can make an argument for all four of them, really, for being a standout track on this album. But what was your favorite one?
Yeah, I also went with Time and Season. This
You
is the
sent
one
me
that's
you sent me your list and I forgot, and I was like, I think you may
oh
have picked this one, but I like it anyway.
yeah. I love that opening bass line, kind of the cymbal grabs, just catches my ear right away. You know, I've said lots how I love the darker sounding MXPX,
Yeah,
and so the verses are darker, but then the chorus kind of changes the feel, you know, just enough to kind of break up the song. And there's this cool little kind of breakdown before the verses. Yeah, this is just some of my favorite MXPX. Like I said, it's got cool lyrics. It's got great ending, like what you know, kind of gradually gets slower and slower, and then just hits that open chord. And
yeah,
I don't know, these are the parts that just gets me excited about MXPX, because it's just different. It's not what you would kind of expect from a typical song structure. And I don't know, I listened to that, I'm like, man, like I kind of just want a whole album of this kind of stuff.
maybe one day. just
Well, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking about this too over text message about, you know, like making playlists of different, because MXPX definitely has kind of like not only different eras as a band, but even within those eras, kind of like different sounds. There was a stretch where there was always, you know, on the records there would be something that you could. Although Life in General, I don't think really has any sort
No,
of
yeah, it was kind of
hardcore
after
songs.
that happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, like early on with Poconacha,
Right.
A
Yeah.
lot of
Yeah.
those songs were like influenced by that. And then Teenage Politics, it's still there to an extent. Life in General, you could make the argument though that Life in General, at least like so much of that record is just balls to the wall fast,
Oh yeah, it's
right?
super
Like
energetic for sure.
there's not really any yelling, but you know, like they're playing at 100 miles an hour. And yeah, and then, you know, as you kind of go forward, you usually get one or two songs. I think like Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo is like that to the T type thing. So it is nice to kind of hear some of these songs come back time.
Yeah.
And you know, I think what I like most about them is that, you know, they're not every song,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it mixes it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just enough that when it comes on, it's like, oh, this is really cool. Like,
Yeah.
wonder where they're going to take this, and the next song will be just kind of the typical, or not typical, but like back to the more kind of pop punk sound of theirs. And
Yeah.
yeah, they seem to do it really well. I mean, I don't know if, you know, there's a few others, like Good Riddance would be another band like that, where they can have a really poppy song and then a really kind of more darker, angry song. And
Yeah.
so it's not like it can't get mixed.
Yeah.
There's not a ton of bands that do it really well or can kind of make it their own.
Yeah. Agreed. Let's move into the next one then. That's the Renaissance EP. This one I can remember going to the store and buying and being really excited for it because if I remember correctly, now I don't know, I must have been like going to mxpx.com or trying to think at this time where I would have been getting this news from. But I feel like it was marketed sort of as this thing as like, oh, MXPX kind of going back to their roots a little bit. Because this came out after the Ever Passing Moment. And it's funny because I can hear that at parts for sure. The production overall is much more raw than the Ever Passing Moment. Like, and it's so stripped down. Like, I'm trying to think off the top of my head if there's songs with more than one guitar part. It doesn't feel like it. Like the guitars don't feel big or anything like that. They're just, you know, sort of there. Everything's just sort of there. It sounds good, but it sounds very different from what they had been doing production wise anyway. And the fact that it was out on Fat Records, like that was, I remember being so excited for that because as a kid who grew up listening to both sides of that fence, you know, like with the tooth and nail kind of like Christian punk, skate punk sort of stuff, and then also just like your regular, whether it was Fat Records, Epitaph, whatever, you know, that
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm like, wait, it was one thing. It was weird for me because it was one thing for MXPX to go from Tooth and Nail to A&M, a major label, but then for them to release something on Fat Wreck, I was like, whoa, wait a second. I don't know if it was something that was a little bit validating to me as a fan, because I also remember, you know, like hearing some people being like, oh, that's not punk rock. Whether it was because, you know, it was poppier, like if it was just that standard argument of being like, no, pop punk isn't punk rock gatekeeping sort of stuff, or if it was like, well, how could it be, you know, sold in Bible bookstores and be punk rock? And I'm like, well, it's this weird thing, this weird world we live in. But
Yeah.
then for it to be on Fat Wreck, I was just like, yeah, okay, like listen, guys, this is what I've been telling you all along.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember a lot of those same dynamics too, and I loved that about music in that era where you didn't, have all the information that you do now, right? It was just like all of a sudden you would, whether on their website or through some kind of promo or something, you'd just be like, oh, what they're okay, so now they're going on Fat Wreck, and just
Yeah.
like the artwork and just all this cool different things that just kind of caught you off guard, and I love that too. Yeah, I remember buying this. I think it was on a band trip actually in Regina here. I think I got this one and Sum 41 album. And yeah, just the album, the artwork was really simple, but it had a skull on it, which I
And yeah,
loved.
I like that we're
And
just working on the EPs with skulls on them.
yeah, but just what was my train of thought there?
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
just with going back to the they're kind of, and I don't know if that time if I even really knew what that meant going back to the original sound, because I mean the ever passing moment was definitely getting away from kind of more whatever punk sound. I mean it's still a punk album, but so, and it's not like this is like drastically like on the other side of the spectrum, but yeah, it definitely, I mean, it's kind of crazy thinking that they went from recording the ever passing moment with Jerry Finn, who had done some of these huge, mainstream pop punk albums, to like, I think this is kind of when Mike started his studio. Right. And this was one of the first projects he did, and he was fairly new to producing. So you can definitely tell on the sound of this album, but I think it plays well to the songs. Like, would I like it to sound better? Yes, but it doesn't take away from the songs.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I don't. Yeah, it's interesting because I don't. So again, going back to conversations that didn't happen on the podcast, but that we were having back and forth over text message. We were talking a little bit about Poconacha, and you were saying, "Oh, I wish they would," because I was just mentioning how good Yuri was at such a young age, and you were kind of going on about how you don't really listen to it because it's just hard to listen to. And I was trying to make the argument that, oh, I like how raw it sounds. Now, there are times on Poconacha where I'm like, well, that guitar tone is a really odd choice, or there was like an apparent lack of skill to get a guitar tone from either Andy or Aaron Sprinkle at the time, right? Whereas with the Renaissance EP, I don't find that there's any choices where I'm like, why did they do that? There's nothing that really bothers me in that way. It stands alone as this like unique sort of sound, especially because you had like the super polish of the ever passing moment, and then with Before Everything and After that comes after this EP, they're even more polished, right? So it's like this weird sort of like in the middle of like, oh, and I kind of see when people were saying like kind of going back to their roots a little bit. There is a little bit of that, but at the same point, it's not like a full record of being like, oh, this sounds like it could have been off of Buffalo or Life in General, or even Teenage Politics sort of thing. There's a tiny bit, and I think the back to their roots thing is more about just how kind of raw it is. But
yeah, I think in just the DIY, like back to a small indie label, doing it yourself.
Yeah,
which is it doesn't look like a major label band release.
And it's also interesting because I don't know how that whole side of the music industry works, right? Like they released that on Fat Records, but they were still on A&M. So how do they get away? Like, what's the deal there? And going like, oh, we want to go do this. Is it because it wasn't a full length? Like, that's why they were allowed to do it? Or, like, I'm just curious. Or did A&M still get a cut off of that without, their name being on it? I'm not sure. But, oh, I did. It's on the wall here, though.
Yeah, yeah, that would be interesting to know. Or like, I wonder what Fat Wreck thought of um, the release after this. Just like, oh,
Yeah.
okay, that's quite a
Odd.
different direction. But
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they didn't care. They just did it for fun.
Yeah.
And I can't remember at what point they had released that 2 song 7-inch on the Fat Club. So that must have been around the same time that they did these 2 releases. That's another one of my. I don't know if it's classified as an EP. It's only 2 songs, but
Yeah, that'd be a
they're 2 of my
single.
favorite songs of them.
I would say if it's just 2 songs, I'd just call it a single. I'm just trying to see what it is. Spirit of Oh, that's the website. I was like, what? It was called Spirit of Rock? That's weird. Oh, yes, this.
Yes.
I had to like look at this term. The road less traveled and you hold the key. When was this?
Yeah.
2001. So when did Renaissance was right around then, right?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, maybe Renaissance was after.
Yeah.
Just looking it up too. No, it's 2001 as well. Look at that. So there you go.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure how that all comes down. I'm sure I could figure it out, read it up somewhere. It is also a longer EP. It's technically 9 songs on it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I was kind of surprised they didn't just throw one more song on and just
They
could have
just
been a full length.
well, part of me wonders if the deal with A&M was like, yeah, you can go
Yeah.
release an EP, and then so they're like, well, we've got 11 songs, and so Fat Records was like,
Right. Like, let's
let's
do
do
9.
9. It's still an EP, and then we'll do a single, or vice versa. We'll do a single, and
Right.
then
Oh
whatever order they
yeah.
came out in. But
That's funny.
um,
Never thought of that.
yeah, no, I've always enjoyed this record. It's funny because I mean, I had like the Move to Bremerton EP or single or however you want to call that. That one's tricky because it's got like a live radio unplugged version of Chick Magnet on there. I feel like it's
Yeah.
more of a single than an EP, but I think it is 4 songs. But like I don't ever really go back to that. And it's just interesting because like this one I put it in there in my collection and I go, yeah, like maybe part of that is because like I said, that it's an EP, but it's a 12-inch, like it's a full sleeve and everything, so it feels like a full record to me more so than being
Right.
maybe like what we're going to get into next. But yeah, it's always been, and maybe because it also came out like still when I was at near the peak anyway of my
Yeah, for
Chris and
sure.
MXPX. But the song that I think might be my favorite on this record is actually Party 2, Time to Go, because not only is it referencing kind of like a song from an earlier record, Party My House Be There on Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo with the title, but I love the references to different movies in the chorus. I'm kind of a sucker for bands that reference whether it's movies or TV shows or like other songs or bands or whatever. I'm always like, oh yeah, yeah. And it is if I can pick up on the references. Now these ones are obvious. He literally just name drops movies, but I've always kind of loved that. And the vocal panning on the bridge where where Mike sings cleaning up is the very worst part. And it's kind of like panning all around you.
Oh yeah.
I kind of really dig that. But what was your song on this one that you like?
Well, this might be an easy one to guess. I went with "Time Will Tell," which is again kind of the hardcore type song on this album, and which is funny because it actually has a very similar beginning to the last song I just said, "Time and Season," where there's a bass riff and kind of cymbal grabs, which is probably the only 2 songs they have that sound like that, and those are the ones that stood out to me. So yeah,
Yeah,
I love the speed and the chord progression. The chorus is. What is it? Yeah, the chorus is very hardcore influenced. It's not a typical chorus. It kind of reminds me of Fist versus Tact, but it adds just so much to the song lyrically is very intriguing. And again, I would love to see Mike kind of go back to some of this style of lyrics.
right.
Yeah, the bridge is cool and it's different. Completely kind of breaks up the song. It's got a kind of a haunting sound to the way the guitar is played, and then it just ends back with that speed and urgency, and so it definitely fits the mold for that type of song that I love,
Yeah.
and one of my favorites on this album.
Yeah. Just a note, it says that produced by Yuri Ruli and Tom Wisniewski. Or Wisniewski. That's
The song or the album?
the album. I was just like looking on, I'm assuming Mike engineered it. It's funny that it doesn't say that, but it does say producer Yuri Ruli, Tom Wisniewski.
Yuri produced all the vocals.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I do love that also on the Wikipedia for this album, it says Party 2 is a sequel song to Party, My House Be There from Slowly Going the Way of the Buffalo. Well done. Well done. Let's move on then to the final of the EPs, that being the Left Coast Punk EP. I bought this record and I have it up on the wall for tonight for you can't, I don't know if you can even see it. Can you see it, Aaron?
A little bit there, yeah.
I think the
Yeah,
light's kind of glaring off
one.
it. But
that's the CD or the vinyl?
No, it's the vinyl.
Okay.
I bought it when I went and saw, along with the one beside it right now, which is Screw Loose. I have that up there for a specific reason. But I bought it when I went and saw them in Seattle with Five Iron Frenzy because all of their vinyl was like, they were all just like 7 inches or whatever, but they were $5. I was like, sweet, just scooped them up. Cause I'm like, awesome. I don't have to pay shipping. I don't have, I can just take these home with me. This is great. So yeah, I know I had listened to it before then, but I don't really remember. I don't remember where I heard about it, any of that kind of stuff. I just remember all of a sudden being like, oh, this is cool, and putting it on. And especially like the first, song or whatever, I'm like, oh, sweet. Like they've kind of like, we're back to fast MXPX, harder MXPX, like, because they kind of just like right out of the gate, I feel like on that first song kind of get you. Although when I think about it, I'm like, oh, well, this came between Secret Weapon and Plans Within Plans, and Secret Weapon has some legit faster songs on there as well. So
it's not as out of place as.
But I think I didn't. This is the funny thing, is I'm not sure if I really listened to Secret Weapon until after listening to this. Like I remember listening to Secret Weapon, and we talked about this in the episode, kind of around when it came out, but not really connecting with it at all. And then it just kind of went away. And then when this was coming out, I kind of went, oh, like this is, and maybe just like the name and the artwork and stuff was all like a little more like, oh, okay, this reminds me of the MXPX I love, right? Like just the live shot of them jumping. It's pretty great.
I love that.
Yeah. But
yeah. I'm the same. I don't remember a ton about this release. I don't have it. But yeah, I love the songs on it. It's an EP that I've gone back to a lot of times. I love the album art. The songs are, for the most part, are good and fit well within their discography, especially for the EPs. And yeah, again, like I'd said before, like I love being surprised by these little releases, and especially because they didn't come with as much, anticipation or kind of pressure of like, oh, okay, like is this gonna, are the fans gonna be happy with this, on their end, or as fans like, oh, this is just a nice little surprise that I wasn't expecting. So, but yeah, that's when you say when it came between Secret Weapon and Plans, like it definitely fits really well in between there. Versus the Renaissance kind of coming or being between those albums. So again, I love those, the way they kind of just place those and surprise fans.
It was also released just a couple days before my birthday when it came out.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, I do find it funny that apparently the song End was a single on this album. Because it's such a weird random pick. And also
I'm not a huge fan of that song.
So it came out on Rock City Record or Rock City Recording Company, if we're gonna get all official. But the vinyl is actually done by Sexy Baby Records.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, Sexy Baby. There is a CD version of this, which I've never seen, but it actually has. I guess the American release has 10 songs on it.
What else is on there?
Well, so there's the EP, which is 6 songs, and then there is an instrumental version of One Step Further, an instrumental version of End, an instrumental version of Broken, and then a demo. What? Oh, it's a song called On a String, which is, I guess, a demo from the Left Coast Punk sessions. It's 1 minute and 38 seconds long. I'm interested to hear that.
I do have those songs.
The Japanese bonus came with the Coffee song and Keep a Beat, which I also have on picture disc.
Right.
I don't have it down here, but one of those 2 songs is okay. I just can't remember which one. I remember.
I can't imagine the Coffee one's that amazing.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I'm trying to remember if that's the one or not. Like, I feel like it very well could be, but yeah, this EP, I liked it from the moment I heard it. It's kind of this like, it holds this really weird place for me. Like, kind of, I don't know how to explain. Like, it feels a little bit special because to me, it was sort of like my reintroduction to getting back into MXPX. Because, like I mentioned, with Panic, I was kind of like, Secret Weapon, while it ends up being good in my books, it didn't like it was. I wasn't following along at the time, and I didn't get into it
Mm,
until years later. Whereas with
yeah.
this record, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is out. I should check this out, right? And I feel like I was checking it out around the time it came out. Like this says it came out 2000, maybe not actually 2009. That's older than I thought. Like I feel like the first time I listened to it, I was actually up here. So in Edmonton, which wasn't until 2012. So there's actually a good chance I didn't hear it
Mm,
until well after. But at the same point, it was still like that first where I put it on, I was like, oh, I actually like this, quite a bit.
yeah.
But yeah, it's maybe I heard it before because I feel like Plans Within Plans maybe even came out around the time I came up here. Anyways, whatever. Um, it is what it is. So songs off this one, I think the one that's always stood out to me is Shanghai in
And
Shanghai.
okay.
And interesting enough, it's a return for Mike Moen, who we talked about because he was on Chop Shop on Secret Weapon. And the whole reason I have this artwork here is because he also did the Screw Loose
Oh yeah.
artwork on this. And that I kind of just like stumbled upon when I was looking at that when we I think, I was doing my MXPX vinyl video, and I was like, oh dang, like Mike, I know who that guy is now because I did some reading on him, and here he is. So he's been up a couple times. So this song, I've liked it. It was like the first one that jumped out at me. Same with like Chop Shop was the first one that really jumped out at me off Secret Weapon. And I think it's because of Mike Moen's like his vocal feature. He's got a unique vocal delivery that kind of sticks with you. But what's the song that you went with?
Yeah, I went with "Desperate to Understand." It's just a very kind of urgent, fast song. Again, it gets right into it. This one has a really interesting choice for guitar lead. It's kind of just like a single string lead with the rhythm guitar kind of playing the same thing. It's got
Mm,
a very kind of gritty feel to it. The chorus adds, much needed melody to kind of break up the song, which I love when they do that on the kind of darker songs when they still kind of add enough melody that it's not just kind of smack you over the head the whole
yeah.
time, but breaks it up a little bit. The chorus states, desperate to understand where we are and where we've been, where we're going and what we'll find within. Then ends with, never give in or they will win. Don't let your guard down. Yeah, just, again, kind of cool lyrics, gets you thinking. I'm not sure who they're referring to or they will win, but
Right.
it kind of seems like, finding a good path and, asking kind of, well, lead to a place that you want to be, or others dictating it or taking advantage. That's kind of what I got out of it. But
Yeah.
yeah, just, again, I miss the lyrics of Mike where it kind of makes you think a little bit. It's not so kind of straightforward, but
Right.
anyways.
Yeah. You miss the days of Mike actually getting to something, singing
Yeah.
about something.
Sorry, Mike.
I feel you. Oh, what sucks? I just realized this whole time we've been recording, I haven't been.
Seriously?
Yeah, but we have Zoom. So Zoom is recording for me. It stopped recording for whatever reason, but here we are.
Oh, wow.
So now this is why we record on Zoom. Now I get to it's my backup. And with that, let's move on to, I know it's Aaron's favorite record. We're going to move on to self-titled.
Okay. Are you ready for this?
Yeah, what do you got?
Okay, well, I feel like I need to give a premise, or not a premise, but what's the word? I don't know. Just be gentle with me. Whatever
Go
the term
on.
is for that, because, well, especially over the last few interviews that I've done with John Neeson and with Jared Scott, I think in both of those they referenced how much they like this album. Um, and so, I mean, I didn't say anything about it on those interviews, kind of knowing we had this coming up. But
Yeah.
Anyways, I'll kind of go through my little spiel here, and people can take from it what they will. So I was really excited for this album. I backed it on the Kickstarter. I thought that was a cool way to engage their fans and get the funding for it. I can still remember when I got the download. I think it was maybe a few days before everybody else was getting it or whatever. And I sat there and listened through it, and I remember having mixed feelings kind of right away. Um, and as always, I really wanted to love the album. That's my biggest kind of hurdle with MXPX, is I always just really want to love it, and so I always feel kind of an inner battle when I don't immediately like it. Sonically, it's a great record. The production and musicianship is great. No complaints there. It just doesn't do anything for me, which is kind of maybe the simplest way of breaking it down. I don't feel the same connection to this album as many of their previous ones. Again, it's nothing against the album. It just, I guess, wasn't what I needed to get hooked on them. I felt like the album was kind of lacking anything really cool and memorable kind of guitar wise. And especially because this was, I think, their first full length where they had two guitar players that were, were on the album. And so I was kind of hoping for more, I say riff oriented. I'm not like saying like crazy riffs. They've never been, a super riffy band necessarily, but just something that kind of stands out or defines the guitar a little bit.
Yeah.
And I felt that was missing. And maybe that's just a personal preference or whatever. Lyrically, it has some high points, but again, nothing really overall grabs me on this. So basically, to sum it up, it basically just kind of makes me miss their older stuff, which I felt was a bit more creative and different. And I know that, kind of sounds really cliche and jaded, and maybe it is. There's been a lot of time between then and this one, but even taking all that away, this on its own just doesn't stand up for me. And so, again, it's an awesome album. I want to love it. When I listen to it, it's like, this is really good, but I don't know, it just doesn't have kind of what I want. And especially doesn't have any hardcore songs. And, and not that it has to have those. I mean, I do love those, obviously, but it kind of missed that dynamic. Like when I listened through it a few times this last few weeks, I put it to start, listen to the end, next day or two, put it on, and it just kind of goes through, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like there wasn't really any points where it's like, okay, I want to stop and like really listen to the song. It was kind of just kind of goes from start to finish. And so anyways, that's kind of a long thought process.
But I think my favorite part about your long thought process is that I don't think you said one good thing about the record, except for production values and then some lyrical high points. And then you said, it's an awesome record. I just don't like it. Well, like, wait, how can you? I mean, yeah. I guess maybe it's just not the choice of words I would have had, like to describe, like, yeah, you know what, like it's good. It's just not for me. So like when you say it's awesome, I'm like, but that sounds like you like it. You like it.
It's awesome in the fact that like the songs, like they're well enough written songs. They, it's all put together really well. It's a great album. There's a lot of great albums that I don't love. So
yeah, anyways, I mean, having said that, you made valid points across the board, because like I can see that. It's also weird because, okay, first let me give, I guess, my background with this record, because I also backed it. I think it's the only Kickstarter I've ever backed, I'm pretty sure, or any sort of crowdfunding type thing. And so I snagged like the teal vinyl, which is right here on my wall. But
yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. So here's the thing. We've actually interviewed everyone who's involved with this on the show over the course of this, because
except the producer, I guess, but
well, yeah, I would say except for the band itself, but I mean the actual physical production of this record, because obviously you interviewed John, who is the man behind this, and then I interviewed I just forgot his name, from Unoriginal Vinyl, Jason.
Jason, yeah.
I was gonna say it starts with a J, and he talked about that as well. So it's kind of neat. But anyway, so I backed it, bought it on vinyl, was excited about it. And if I recall, I think even like the first couple, like singles that they released, I was like, okay, like musically I can get behind this. This is, you know, we're going in the right direction here. And then I can specifically remember when it was released. It did come out early, and I can remember listening to it on my phone driving home from a baseball game that I was working, and I got stuck at a train. And this train in Edmonton is notorious that you can get stuck at it for quite some time. And so I was sitting there for, I think, like 15, 20 minutes waiting for this train, but I didn't care because I was listening to this new MXPX record and I was actually thoroughly enjoying it. Now, here are kind of my general thoughts about this record. I agree with you in the sense that it doesn't, when I think about the record, it doesn't really do anything that makes me want to come back and listen to it. And I think part of that is because I haven't spent the time with it to, obviously it's not, there's no nostalgic connection to it because it's not a record, I listened to growing up or what have you. And I
Yeah.
haven't spent the time with it to really like engage or attach to any of the lyrics in it, even though that, because the lyrics are the part of this record that really kind of I get stuck on a lot of the time. Specifically in a couple songs, like is it Rolling Strong? That's the opening track, right? Rolling Strong.
Yeah.
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 It. I mean, I love the way that song starts, like that bass intro and whatever. It's like I'm like, okay, here we go. Like this is MXPX, kind of like fast sort of stuff. And I have zero, before I say this, I have zero issue with MXPX dropping any quote unquote swears, right? What
Yeah.
drives me crazy is that it just feels so incredibly forced and cheesy. The way they like decided to, kind of be like, look, we're not that band anymore that you necessarily grew up loving, that, your youth pastor played for you on a Friday night type thing, right? And so lines like rolling in this big ass van, it's like, okay, fine.
Oh
And then
man.
the line that follows, trying to get some more bass blasting, like, what are you even singing about at this point? Like, it sounds like it has got to be one of, if not the worst, Mike Herrera lines of all time. Like, it's just like, it's so dumb, and to use it to be like this thing, it's like, look, we're no longer that youth group band. We're going to hit you with this right off the top. And then with Friday Tonight, I understand people love the song, and I understand it's a line from a movie, which I just said I like when bands reference things. And I actually, it gets stuck in my head all the time because I think the delivery of the line isn't, like, I don't know if it's fair to call it incredibly inventive. There's something about it that stands out from any other MXPX line delivery. It's just, I guess what I'm saying is, like, I don't have an issue with that. The whole song just feels kind of like, what is this song? Like, okay, this song is about, it's Friday and we're feeling, why has it got to end in a fight? Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just like this weird song, and they have this line from a movie that doesn't, to me, like, really fit in, other than the fact that I'm pretty sure it's
What
from the
movie is that
movie.
from?
I think it's from the movie, like Friday or Next Friday or whatever. Um,
Uh, Not
I,
even familiar with what that movie is. I don't think.
uh, every
Is
time
that
I'm in
like
the
a
kitchen.
stoner movie or something?
Yeah, like it's with Ice Cube. I just
Uh,
want to, yeah, it's in
yeah,
Friday.
I can picture the cover.
Yeah. But yeah, like I've never seen it either, but when I looked it up, I was like, I'm pretty sure this is a line from a movie because it feels so out of left field, which is like, I think kind of what annoys me a little bit about it is, it's like, you're singing this song and then all of a sudden you're like quoting this line, and it's the chorus of your song, or like the pre-chorus of your song. Every time I'm in the kitchen, you're in the kitchen, in the goddamn refrigerator. I'm like, what? Why? Like, why is this a thing? It just feels, I don't know. There are a number
Too
of points.
Forrester.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
few points on this record where lyrically, I just feel it really falls short because, with albums like even Plans Within Plans or Secret Weapon, yeah, they did have some of that more like hardcore sort of influence stuff. But even if you took those out of there, for the most part, I felt like those records hold up lyrically across the board anyway, where like even if the song's
Right.
not like, you know, as fast or as energetic as you want, it is still, you know, like lyrically giving you what you're looking for type thing. And, you know, Mike at some of his best. So there's just a few spots on this record. And it's just sort of been driven home like that point a little bit with some of their songs that have followed that, where I'm like, like, where are we going right now with your lyrics? However, we haven't talked about the live stream at all, which we both watched. They played a new song on that was actually pretty dang good. So,
Yeah.
you know, it is what I'm not a big fan of like Worries and what was the other? They had another.
Fever or something.
Yeah, Fever Dream's the worst. Like it's right up there too for pretty bad Mike Herrera lyrics. I'm sorry. I get it's like about his wife, but how many times does he have to tell us that he just wants to spend all day in bed with her? Like I don't, you know, like I was looking at the lyrics to that song and I was just like, okay, you've said that like 5 times in this song, and I'm pretty sure it's not even in the chorus. You just say it in every verse. We're stuck in quarantine. Let's have sex. Like that's the, you know, the vibe I get from it. But anyway, going off on
I think I
tangents.
listened to that song like, well, I don't even know it enough to
Well,
remember the reference because it
yeah,
just didn't stand out at all.
which is fair. I just like I literally in prepping for this, I was like, oh yeah, these songs. Like, what are we looking at here? I kind of want to read the lyrics to you, and they can be a declaration to you. Do you remember being
Read them
stuck in?
about me.
Yeah, this is about you, from me to you. Do you remember being stuck inside? Thought about running while I tried to hide. It's not bad so far.
Yes.
It's pretty generic, but whatever. Under the covers with you. We didn't come out till June. They stayed in bed until June, I guess. And then the next verse, probably should have waited till the 4th of July, like spending all those evenings warming by the fire. Underneath the blankets, the view was perfect. I could stay down under there all year. You're perfect. And the way he says that you're perfect at the end of the verse is just absolutely I I feel bad because MXPX is one of my all-time favorite bands. And I don't like crapping on bands, but here we are. Where were we at? So please baby won't you stay, I can't stand to be 6 feet away because I could spend all week in bed with you. Like it's like all he wants to sing about.
Which again is fine, but I don't know, make it a little bit interesting,
Or just
and
find
maybe it
different
was
ways
just
to
supposed to
say
be a
it.
kind of for fun, like
Yeah, totally, right?
yeah,
Like I get it. Like it just feel I guess maybe that's a little repetitive and you know not finding different ways to say it type thing, right? Like okay, you've said now 4 times in this song you just want to spend all your time in bed. I get it, but okay. I don't know. It's just I think the songwriting and which is funny because that song's not even on this record, but it just kind of helps drive home a point where I think the songwriting just feels a little lazy at times. Um, Having said that, it's weird because this record also feels like it has a bunch of like nods to their fans across it. Like, just like, I know you said it, you know, and I mentioned it doesn't make me, there's no nostalgia tied to this, but I feel like they do things at times on this record where it's like, hey, remember how you were a fan with us at this time? Here's either a song about this or like a guitar riff that kind of feels like it comes from this. Like, there's different points on this record where I'm like, oh, that guitar work sounds like it could have come off of Teenage Politics because they had a very specific like
mm,
riff sound at that time. I found right, like so. There's just like different things, but we're gonna spend our whole episode talking. Let's move on. Let's get into the songs, starting with Uptown Streets.
yeah, take it away.
Yeah, so this was one of my picks. It stood out to me from day one because of the lyrics. It seems to be a song about finding comfort in the place you grew up, sort of thing, or at least like coming back to that. And you know, we would all know this as fans of MXPX that it very much could be a song about Bremerton, the city itself. The first thing that jumped out to me was the opening line on a Saturday night in the year of the summer of Sam. Because the summer of Sam, this is what I was trying to figure out is if this was like, was he using the son of Sam, David Berkowitz, as a reference to like the year he was born, which wouldn't be true because the summer, like Son of Sam, David Berkowitz, Summer of Sam stuff was in 1977. Mike was born in 1976. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what the reference is there. But then the Summer of Sam is also a movie that came out in the, I think it was like 1999, maybe about all of this. So I can't quite figure out what he's like trying to go on about there. And he talked about running scared and all this stuff. So I was like, okay, unless it was like he heard about this sort of stuff, and then, you know, as a kid was just kind of scared because this was something that was, you know, had happened. I don't know, but now he's still living in this town, I guess, even though he's technically moved away. But so just the reference of a serial killer kind of caught my ear a little bit. There also seems to be a lot of looking back on this record, like in different songs, just kind of looking back on how things have
Yeah.
gone over the years, which is very much kind of like the theme I get from this record. And this is just one of those songs. There's something about that. There's something about writing, because in Let's Ride, he kind of sings about, you know, his childhood and growing up as well. And there's the way I feel he sings about it kind of gives me, I don't know. I kind of like, you know, I understand people complaining about punk bands or pop punk bands or whatever, singing, always just singing about growing up, but he's not singing about it as if that's happening now, sort of thing, right? Like he's
Right.
singing about it,
Yeah.
looking back on it. And so, I don't know, there's something that's just kind of drew me to the song with that. There's a little bit of storytelling. The lyrics aren't 100% clear on what he's necessarily referencing to me, but I feel like they're probably just different, like just different parts from his childhood that he maybe remembers. But did you have any thoughts on that song?
Yeah, this is probably the most kind of Americana rock song on the album. When I was listening to it, it was just like, man, this would kind of fit great on a Social Distortion album. It
Right.
kind of has that kind of older classic punk rock sound to it. Yeah, it's a fine song. Nothing really stands out to me. I mean, you kind of mentioned the lyrics. It takes even me back to thinking of, you know, my own uptown street, so to speak, and
Yeah.
you know, to adolescence and making memories that come with that, and listening to MXPX on those streets. So that's what kind of makes this song special to me. The song itself doesn't really make me feel anything other than, you know, the lyrics and kind of piecing that all together.
Yeah. That's fair. So let's move on to the next one then. The Way We Do. This was another one that I picked, and this one, it's obvious why this one stood out to me from the very first time I listened to it. I mean, Mike name drops a few bands that they toured with, and this is one of those songs where I feel like, you know, they're kind of like, you know, giving a little nod to their fans that have been there this whole time, I feel, by looking back on something like this. And you know, I'm curious. I'd like to hear the stories behind, like, Face to Face destroying their van, and maybe those stories are out there. I've never read them, but or like stealing food from Bad Religion's dressing room. And you know, they sang about Canada with Simple Plan. Simple Plan's not my favorite band, but it reminds me of the It Came from Bremerton VHS, where there's a shot of Mike, and he's like going through like their tour van and what they've done to it, so you know, you can lay down in the back and sleep and all this stuff. And in that shot, he's wearing a shirt that says Reset, which was Pierre from Simple Plan and one other member, I think, like they're
The drummer, I
the
believe.
drummer. They're like original band, right? Like more of a skate
Yeah.
punk band before doing the Simple Plan stuff. So I'm like, I mean, knowing that they kind of, this was a band they had connected with over the years, and in I was just like, it's kind of cool. And looking back, you know, sort of on that sort of thing. And it sees, you know, kind of like what he's put into it, the sacrifices that have been made and what he's willing to do, which I think is something that Mike has made obvious over the years by even just looking at things like MXPX All Stars, where he was like, no, I don't want this to be done yet. This is what I love doing and what I'm going to continue doing. And, you know, thankfully we're in a place now where, you know, not that there was necessarily anything wrong with MXPX All Stars. We talked about them briefly, but you know, it's just so much better to be back in a place where they're just together as a band.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, so what, do you have any thoughts on The Way We Do?
Yeah, so just to touch on like all the band references. So I think it was on an episode of Mike's podcast, if I remember. He actually he talked about this song and broke down all those stories. So
Oh, nice.
they
I should
are
go
out there
find it.
somewhere. So actually, the Cross Canada tour with Simple Plan was actually with Reset. They just figure, well, no one's gonna know who Reset is, and it doesn't kind of rhyme the same, you know, like freezing balls across Canada with Reset, you know, kind of, or whatever. And then he kind of
Reset doesn't rhyme with van. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. It talks about the food from Bad Religion, and so I don't know how you would
That's
go
awesome.
and find that now, but I do remember really enjoying those, and yeah, I mean, a lot of the same thoughts. I mean, again, that's what makes this song is
Mhm.
just kind of all those thoughts. You know, kind of the wonder of how our favorite bands cross the country and into
Yeah,
different countries, and you know, and then so fans like us can experience the music and the songs live. But you know, that
yeah,
comes at a cost to bands, and so it's cool to hear that in the frame of this song.
yeah.
Yeah, again, I'm a bit disappointed with the guitar on this. The main opening guitar riff just kind of needed something else, something more to stand out on this. But yeah, that's kind of my overall thought on that.
So let's move on to life goals. This is your song.
Yeah, life goals because I need some. Just kidding.
Get yourself together.
Well, it's kind of funny that the two songs. I'll mention that after, but yeah, this life goals is actually another song that I was listening. I was like, hey, this song could fit on a Social Distortion kind of
Mhm.
album too. It kind of has that type of sound, and that especially that opening riff and the verses. Um, yeah, I don't really know how to describe the style of playing. Maybe it's again more just kind of the Americana rock type playing. But yeah, I love the chorus on this song. It's really simple and quick, but it has a really great melody to it. Just kind of saying it's good to have life goals. Um,
It's good to have something to work towards.
yeah. My favorite part of this song is actually the end of the second verse, where Mike drags out the lyrics where it's buried 6 feet underground. Like he kind
Mhm.
of,
Yep.
whatever you call that. And then it goes into this really cool bridge that just
Yeah.
totally changes the mood of the song. It's kind of a bit more like swingy kind of tempo, not like swing music, but I don't even know if maybe do they change the
I
tempo. I
did.
don't know, but
I didn't count it. I did. Like, I took a note on that though, because it for sure comes out of, um, kind of out of nowhere, and I takes you on a little bit of a journey within the song.
yeah, yeah. And so those are the kind of little morsels that I that I just want more of, where it's just kind of like, oh, okay, where's he going with this now? Instead of just
Mhm.
kind of going where you
Yeah.
think he's going to go. So yeah, main takeaway: it's good to have life goals. I agree.
Yes, it's true. I think it's a great song. Again, kind of just reiterating what you said about finding sort of purpose in your life and living it, because you never know when it's going to end, type thing, right? Like, and then that bridge is, it's a nice little added surprise, because I feel the song is pretty straightforward otherwise, and then yeah,
Yeah,
he kind of goes and does this little bit of a turn, as his lets his vocals wander a little bit. But let's get into the last song that we're going to talk about. It's Pipe Dreams.
yeah. So this is I think my favorite song on the album. I feel like I'm just kind of saying the same things, but again, the opening guitar riff just again feels lacking. I don't know. I feel like they kind of utilize this guitar style too much on this album, where they're kind of, this might not make sense to non-guitar players, but where they're just playing like the A string open and then just kind of moving the string underneath it around, kind of as the riff, which
Mhm.
is fine here and there. But as I listened, there was a few times like, it just kind of seems like the same kind of style of
Right.
lead guitar or whatever. But yeah, I really like the pace of this song. I've mentioned that before, on the kind of pace of MXPX's Sweet Spots, where it's not super fast, but it's fast enough that when you go to kind of the halftime chorus, it just kind of has that really kind of good feel to the song.
Yeah.
I do find that lyrically it's maybe a bit too similar to Life Goals. It's kind of funny I picked those two songs, Life Goals, Pipe Dreams, like kind of
Maybe you're
having a,
saying something to yourself.
yeah. So, but it stands on its own for enough. It's not super similar, but
Yeah.
just every time I listen to those two songs, and I think are they even like one after the other? I can't remember on the
Yep, they
track
are.
listing. Yeah. So in that case too, I'm like, oh, it's kind of interesting to have two songs that not say the same thing, but kind of the same overall direction. I
That
don't know.
is my main note about this song, though, is I actually like that they're back to back, because I feel in Life Goals, Mike is singing about using your life goals to kind of keep you moving forward. And in this song, I feel like he's singing about, those moments when you feel like maybe all is lost or life is too heavy, that pipe dreams are something that can give you hope, no matter, how attainable or unattainable they are, right? Like, it's just something that you can, because like, I feel like a life goal or a goal is something that you can achieve if you just, like, just with work and putting effort in, sort of thing, right? Keep you driving.
Yeah.
Like, this is something I can do. Pipe dreams, I feel, are like something that are more potentially like bigger, more unattainable possibly, but just something that you can look at and go, oh man, like that's what I hope for, sort of thing, right? Like,
Yeah.
I could have a life goal of being like, yeah, um, I want to, you know, a life goal. I'm going to say, do this in a, I want to run, you know, every day for a month. And then I could have a pipe dream of being like, I want to be, you know, the most in shape, so, you know, whatever, like just
Yeah.
something
Yeah. That's
bigger and
true.
grander that in those, you know, kind of harder times, you can just kind of hold on to and be like, no, I think there's something a little more hopeful here. But so I do like that they're back to back and fairly similar, I think. But I
Yeah.
think in conclusion, going into this record for this particular episode, I'd kind of written it off. I hadn't listened to it in a while. And, you know, my memory was telling me it wasn't good. In reality, I think the record's fine. It's
Yeah.
far from, you know, it's far from their best, but it's far from their worst too, I think. The biggest problem with this record is really only in a couple of songs, just cheesy lyrics that we talked about. Like, for me, I could see where you're coming from with going, oh, I wish there was a little more, something a little more from the guitar work. At the same point, I do like that the guitars sound full and just kind of drive the album from beginning to end. I
Yeah.
don't think they've done anything on this record that wins them new fans. And back in the past life of this podcast, we actually reviewed this record with Jordan.
Yeah. I remember
And
that.
yeah, and I said basically that. I was like, I like this record. It's not going to win them any fans though, because it's just kind of full of little things here and there where you're like, okay, you know, I don't think there's any real like single sort of thing, but they're not going for that at this point either. Like, this is a prime example to me of MXPX has found their groove in the sense that they have their core fan base and they can survive off of that. They can continue
Yeah,
doing
for
what
sure.
they're doing off of that without breaking themselves down and burning themselves out and going like, dang it, we were hoping this was going to be our big, you know, number one record, sort of thing, right? Because I think
Yeah.
they realize, hey, that time's passed. Like, I don't know, and maybe, who knows, like maybe with Machine Gun Kelly and his pop punk actually going number one, like maybe there's this new resurgence coming. But in reality, pop punk is a thing, as far as mainstream success is concerned, really a thing of the past, right?
Yeah.
And so they know that. They know they were a part of that in the early 2000s. But I feel like they've really, because even before, you know, like COVID and everything and live streams and stuff, I feel like they were really good at connecting with their fans,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely.
Like
Yeah.
through social media, whether it's actually, you know, responding to things or just like their updates that they give. And then when you look at how they do like their weekender shows, sort of things, where they go and they play, you know, the same city 2 nights in a row and then just go home or whatever. There's like these sort of going out here and there. I think that they really found this groove, and I think this record does fine, because like I said, it's far from their best, but it's also far from their worst, which
Yeah.
says something,
Definitely.
because even their worst I like to an extent,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah. For
we'll
sure.
talk about that in a few minutes. But
Yeah. And when you have so many full lengths, I mean, there's only so many places to go as well. So
yeah,
that's what I mean by like, yeah, it's far from my favorite, but it's still a good album. So yeah, that's what I meant. There's lots to take away. It's a good album for the
right.
fans.
I
Um,
also really love moments like this as a closer, because I think it kind of like it's not this big like massive closer where you're like, oh, like, you know, this is incredible what they're doing musically or whatever, but just the kind of feel and the lyrics, it's like, yeah, okay. And I think that's where I sit with this record, just kind of going like, you know what, from everything I gather on this record, at least when it was made, I mean, I feel like it's probably still in the same place, but I feel like on this record they were just kind of in a content, happy place. Um,
yeah,
you know, and so I don't think there's really any sort of like angrier songs on here. Maybe that's why you don't have any hardcore songs that show up. But because, I mean, obviously they still play them live, but I don't, it just feels like they were like, yeah, you know what? No, this is good. You know, this is we've done good for ourselves. we've done well for ourselves. Let's just embrace that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree.
I really get that on this album. But yeah, did you? Sorry, I cut you off. Did you have any kind of closing thoughts other than
No,
what you'd
no,
mentioned?
no.
All right.
That was a really good thought.
Those are the best kind of cutoffs when it doesn't actually matter. Yeah, so that's going to wrap this episode up. Then we are going to we're going to do a bonus episode where we are going to rank our MXPX albums. We've kind of been teasing that a little bit. I believe I counted. I think they have 10 full lengths, studio full lengths.
Yes.
So we're going to go from 10 to number 1 on our bonus episode. But you got to be on Patreon, or not that this matters to you right now, but depending on how this goes, because you're going to hear this after it's already happened. We're actually trying an Instagram live thing. So who knows, maybe this will be a recurring thing. So you can snag it on Instagram live first, but yeah. So Patreon, $5 a month. You get bonus content over there. You can find that at growingpunkpod.com. We've also got t-shirts. As I mentioned, I'm wearing one of my own right now. You can stay up to date on all of our episodes, videos, reviews, whatever we've got going on. You can go read my post on my top 5 tooth and nail punk records.
Yeah, it's a good
That's
one.
up there. Yeah. So that's at growingpunkpod.com. You can also find us online, Instagram, Twitter at growingpunkpod. That'll do it though. So yeah, bye-bye.
See ya.